So Scott, here we are. I think this is a Lawrence Krauss question. Just someone had reposted it. I thought that's a good question. So you're choking. I have two options. One, I perform the Heimlich maneuver. Two, I pray. Which one do you want me to do? It goes to prayer and how people say, oh, prayer will solve everything. Okay. Good luck with that chunk of steak in your throat. So Scott, what do you think about this?
Man, this one really hits close to home. I had a friend of mine, one of my best friends in high school, and he was had a lot of health issues. He was morbidly obese. He was always involved in the church. He had his own church. He literally helped build schools and stuff in Africa as a missionary and things like that. But his health issues got to where he was up to 700 pounds. Spent a lot of time in hospitals, but he was always praying. He was always talking about how good the God was. And a year ago right now, he was just getting out of the hospital after a 7-week stay because he had to have a heart thing, but they couldn't do the heart thing because it would mess up his triglycerides, but fixing that would mess up his hydration, which would throw off his sugars and stuff like that. Always talking about prayer, pray for me because God is going to see me through this. And he even, after he got out, he said, my doctor said I was going to be on this oxygen tank for the rest of my life. But I got up on Sunday morning and I prayed and I didn't need that oxygen tank, and God is good and God is healing me. And this is a person that I was an accountability partner for a very long time. And I had to stop being an accountability partner because he was taking off health stuff, but adding like prayer group stuff to his to-do list, his accountability list.
Yeah.
And 6 days after he put the post about, not using the oxygen and stuff anymore, his dad did a wellness check on him and found him dead. So
do I know that guy? We were in
a
group.
No, this was like from high school. He never traveled out.
No. You and I are in a different group, that food group, and there was a guy.
Yes,
that used to be in that.
Tiny.
Okay.
That's why you haven't seen
his name. Well, that's not his real name, unless it is, it is Alabama. It could be his God.
Yeah.
But
no, he.
Yeah, I remember that guy. He was very big, and I've never met him, but his pictures on Facebook at the time. This is like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
a long time ago that I remember seeing him on, but I hadn't seen him since. Okay.
Yeah, he passed away August 28th of last year. Like 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks from today. And this is right after that. I have a special place in my cold, dark heart for people who lean into religiosity rather than taking personal responsibility for things like that.
Yeah.
Or people who deny their children medical care.
That's my
Christian scientists.
There is one option. There is one option. You're choking to death. You perform the Heimlich maneuver. Mm-hmm. The other option is they die. Yeah. You can put prayer on there if you want. You can pray over them as they die. Yeah. But that's going to be the result. I
love that God has a plan and he's perfect and his plan is perfect. And somehow us praying, it's like trying to convince God to change his all perfect plan.
Perfect plan.
Right. Like who are we to impose on this relationship?
Exactly.
And to go deeper into the question, there's more that was involved in this question about medical professionals and how medical professionals have to deal with, spending 16 hours without a pee break on somebody's surgery, only to come out and have the family go, well, thank God.
Yes.
We'll take him to the church next time. But the thing is, if every success is a little, up to God, doesn't that mean that every failure is a failure of that God? Because when you start doing if it doesn't work, it's the Lord working in strange and mysterious ways. Yeah. That's just you doubling down on BS.
You get to take credit. You also have to take accountability.
Yeah. The other feature of that, thanking God for all these big things, is they also begin to thank God for the little things. It becomes just, it becomes meaningless. I remember once I had to print some labels at work, and the lady that was running the production line had come in just as I had finished the labels, looking for them. And if she didn't have the labels, the line was going to stop, and she didn't want that. So she came in, and I said, "Oh yeah, they're finished. Let me take them off the machine." She goes, "Oh, thank God." I said, "No, this was me."
I think Larry. It's pronounced Larry.
I do the mundane things, So, and it occurred to me after I was thinking about that later, I said, well, if they're thanking God for these trivial, tiny little things and the great big things, doesn't that dilute everything? Doesn't that minimize? And
yeah, I do wonder about that, because you're right. And the thank God is, of course, a statement that we all kind of just say because we grew up in the United States. But I think you're right, though, because how many times we start, I've seen it on Facebook, someone I've gone to school with, oh, I got to thank God I got the apartment. What? You had a good credit score, enough money. That's how you got an apartment. There's not much to it, But you're right. It's like if saving a child from bone cancer and getting your apartment are on the same scale with this God, you're right. It's diluting it, and it seems it does trivialize whatever awesome power that a God should have or be concerned about. Well, and I know sometimes it's just said, but sometimes they truly, I remember one person, and that was a specific example. She did say, thank God I got the apartment. And she was a hardcore Christian, not necessarily a bad way, just a very sweet girl, but that's what she said. I remember, it's just an apartment. He's not looking out for you, or he would have maybe not put you in a position where you had to be so desperate to get an apartment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why didn't God get me a house?
Yeah. Why do we have to even be here? Like that woman in the very beginning, she says, your kid is, or I'm sorry, we only saw it for a second. I'll go ahead and wait on that. Yeah, I'll go ahead and wait on that
hang on
until
to that.
It actually comes up. But the one thing that I did want to add here is that we can really prove that it's that the difference between the Heimlich maneuver and praying. I mean, even our government will go ahead and send parents to prison for praying.
Yeah.
Because
for
if you
instead
do
of
not
a blood
take your child,
transfusion.
you do not take your child into the hospital when they need it. The federal and state government will go ahead and prosecute, and you'll do a lot of time in prison.
No, there are some states that have laws that protect parents from making religious-based medical decisions and their child dying from it. I think Utah is one.
Right.
Idaho is another one.
Yeah,
there are states and they have
the Mormons.
And even in the Mormon community, there have been parents who have been jailed because of child neglect.
Yeah,
they actually have. Even though they fall under those protections,
they going after the Jehovah's Witnesses too.
The Jehovah's Witnesses, because they're the blood transfusion and everything else.
No blood transfusions. Yep.
Right. The Mormons are real big with kicking their kids out for non-belief as well.
That's a whole other kettle of fish. The Jehovah's Witness and the blood transfusion, and this is where I'm not at all on their side, and I'm going to try to say this so it doesn't come off the wrong way. How do you wrestle with, I'm their parent, I know what's best for them, and because that's a broad statement, and then but someone say up until this point, and what is that point? You know what I mean? Because if I say, well, no, my kid's who's 11. And Scott, you and I know someone who has a young child. It's a trans child. There's a young child. How do I say my kid says they're trans and they're 8 years old, and I'm going to allow that because I believe that's fine and I believe all that? Another parent across town says, no, that's absolutely wrong. Where does the government, what line do you find where the government can say, okay, but you're raising them wrong and you're raising them right? And you say blood transfusion, and maybe that's not a guaranteed cure, but you're allowed to believe that, or you shouldn't believe that, and therefore we as doctors should agree with it or not agree. There's a line. I don't have an answer. I'm really throwing it out because I see what the wrestle is, and I don't know how you would quantify that from a law.
This gets into a very deep conversation about where I feel that secular humanism is a better moral system because it's based in the well-being of the people involved. And that well-being, no matter who, well-being would have specific markers. When you talk about rates of suicide for transgender children plummeting when they have one affirming person in their household, that is a definitive marker that shows gender-affirming care is working in the best interests of that child, especially when it's backed by every medical, psychological, biological, and lexicographical organization on the planet almost.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if the child dies, you have a very valid metric that if a child does not get blood that the child needs, it's going to die, which is against its well-being.
Yes.
So that's where I think this is why I think the government should stay out of decisions like that when it comes to religious-based things. The well-being of the child should always be first and foremost, and that decision of well-being, A, should involve the child as much as possible, and B, be backed up by evidence-based data. Because when you talk about prayer has been tested. There was a blind study, one of the religious groups, they had 3 subsets. They had almost all the same surgeries, groups that were being prayed for, groups that wasn't being prayed for, and a group that was being prayed for and were told they were being prayed for. Mm-hmm. The group that was being prayed for without being told and the group that wasn't being prayed for had about the same risk of the same numbers of complications and stuff like that. The group that knew they were being prayed for actually had slightly worse outcomes, because just like anything else, if you think you got it on easy street, you're going to be lax. Right. That specific one was a small sample study. I think it was like 700 or something like that. But there's no evidence. It gets back to evidence-based stuff. There's absolutely no evidence that prayer works in any evidentiary fashion.
No,
I think
do the
moral of the story.
Or watch them die. Pray while you're doing the Heimlich. That's fine.
Hope I do this right.
Yeah.
Scott,
if I'm in a car accident and I'm giving someone CPR, I'm an atheist and I might still be praying if I really just
to hope.
Why not?
The issue, I think,
throw it out to the universe.
It becomes a little more crowded, Scott, when you look at an issue like homeschooling or school vouchers.
True.
Where the parents say, well, I know what's best for my child, despite all the evidence that most of them don't. Now, some of them do. Some of them are capable of preparing their children for higher education or whatever. I believe the vast majority are not. And the vast majority of homeschool is religious based. They get their curricula from religious organizations, which are demonstrably inaccurate and just bad. And then they try to go into college and immediately struggle. So I think that kind of clouds the situation, and the people who want to homeschool or have this so-called parental choice will point to bad schools or bad teachers or situations with public funding of schools, which ironically they're making worse by pushing for school vouchers for private schools. It's going to get worse. And say, well, see how terrible it is. I can do better myself, and I should have the decision on what to do. It becomes
that's the same type of question, and that's exactly what Larry is exactly the point. It's like, okay, there's a line. I don't know necessarily where it's at, but I've never been a big fan of the homeschooling because I've known too many kids that were homeschooled by morons, and they grew up to be morons, and now they've got their own kids that will be morons, and it's sad. I mean, I'm joking about it, but it's a sarcastic and bitter joke because it pisses me off. And I've got close people up to me because there's no reason that child should have ever been schooled by you. You're an idiot.
And the more they homeschool,
education, you're just not a good, smart person. Why do you think you have any credibility teaching this other person that what you don't know? And I know you didn't really teach them because you don't know it anyway.
Yeah. The more it goes on, the more it harms society as a whole.
As a whole,
take on the role of being a teacher without any training. Same thing. Pastors do that too. They take my work of being a therapist and they're like, oh, I'm a counselor, and it's like, you have no qualifications for that whatsoever. Right. So it's like me trying to be a doctor, and I'm not.
Purely biased education. They're a counselor from a Christian perspective, which doesn't help if you're not Christian. I was talking to my mom one time. I think I told one of you guys on a call. She lives in Florida, and she lives in a small town. And she was saying her pastor, who's the pastor of the biggest church in this town, Callahan, Scott. He's a counselor, grief counselor. So like, oh, and she's like, yeah, so if the case was everything going on at the school, brother or whatever his name is, he can go in. Like, yeah, that sounds real good. But what about Muhammad, who might be a grief counselor at the mosque? Like, your little town would lose their collective fucking mind if mosque guy comes in there, right? But he's as equally qualified because he went through training too. He just didn't go through Christian training because he's Muslim, you know? So it's like, you're not a counselor. Hey, thanks for tuning in to today's show. I really hope you enjoyed it. Do me a favor and like and subscribe to the show and tell a friend. That helps us grow and it lets us keep bringing you more voices from the other side of belief. Until we talk again, be kind to one another and remember that reason and compassion go a long way.